Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 60 in our incredible new tutorial series where you are unleashing the power of your Raspberry Pi Pico W. What I will need you to do is pour yourself a nice strong glass of ice cold coffee. That would be straight up black coffee poured over ice. No sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Sunfounder. Sunfounder is actually sponsoring this most excellent series of video lessons. And in this class, we will be using the Kepler kit for Raspberry Pi Pico W. Now, most of you guys probably already have your gear, but if you don't, look down in the description. There is a link over to Amazon. You can hop on over there and pick your kit up. And believe me, your life and my life are going to be a whole lot easier if we are working on identical hardware. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's jump in and talk about what I am going to teach you today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my solution to the homework assignment that I gave you in lesson number 59. But before I do, I must first ask, were you successful? If you did the homework, leave a comment down below. I am legend. Double chest bump. And if you were not successful, leave a comment down below. I folded up like a cheap Walmart lawn chair. Okay, hopefully you guys were able to do it because I'm just trying to reinforce the learning that we had in the earlier classes. And if you've taken those earlier classes, you really should have had the skill set to make this lesson successful. Okay, so what was the homework? The homework was for me to get out of your way, have some of my coffee, and then come over here and look at this. And so what we were going to do is we were going to have the joystick connected to the Raspberry Pi Pico W. Then we're also going to have our NeoPixel 8 LED strip hooked up. And then what the assignment was to take the joystick, and as you move it from 0 to 360 degrees, to take the NeoPixel strip through the rainbow. So whatever angle you put the joystick at, you get the color on the HSV color wheel associated with that angle, and then you apply that color to the NeoPixels. And actually, it is pretty straightforward based on what we have already learned in this class. So let's jump in, and I don't want to start completely from scratch, and so I'm going to grab a little bit of the code that we had already developed in some of the earlier lessons. And so the first thing we need to do is we need to be able to convert an angle on the HSV color wheel, convert an angle on the HSV color wheel to an R, a G, and a B value to apply to our NeoPixel array. And we have already done that. And so what I can have you do is I can have you go to the most excellent www.toptechboy.com. And then what I will need you to do is use this happy little search icon up here and search on something like convert HSV to RGB in MicroPython. Now, if you really want to understand it, watch the video, or you can just snag the code here by pointing at these dandy little page icons, click, and now you have that code. We will come back over here to Thani, and we will paste that code in. And what this is it's a function. It is a function that you pass it a degree, some number of degrees on the HSV color wheel, and then what it will return to you is the equivalent R, G, and B value that would give you that HSV color. Okay, so it's like an HSV to RGB converter. All right, we developed this in an earlier lesson. Then also what we want is we want to get that program that we developed a couple of lessons ago, where you can take the joystick and you can determine what angle it is at. And so that was 2 or 3 lessons ago. If you don't remember that, go back and find that lesson. But I am going to again go to www.toptechboy.com, and this time we are going to search on something like calibrating joystick to show positional angle, something like that. You use the happy little search icon to search on that. You'll come here and you will get this program. Okay, so again, we're going to snag that program like this. And then we are going to come over and we're going to paste that in. Like, okay, I need to really paste this one first. So I did it the wrong order. Let's start again and let's paste the joystick. So I just pasted the joystick code. Now I need to go back and I need to get that HSV converter. Okay, I need to go back and I need to get that HSV converter. So we will come back to the convert HSV to RGB and we will snag that. Why? Because I really want this code in the middle of the other code. So you see this code for the joystick, we set the joystick up and then we start looping. Well, here, before we start looping up here at the top, we really want to put our function in. And so this then is the function that you pass it a degree and you will get back a red, a green, and a blue value that will give you that color angle. Okay, does that sound good? All right, so now if we run this, I think what this will do is this will just print out. It will just simply print out the angle that the joystick is on. But I guess before I go on, I need to just pause for just a second and tell you how I have this hooked up. Hopefully you have it still hooked up from the earlier lessons we've done on this, but maybe I better come over here to a bigger view. First of all, on the joystick, if you have the one in the kit from Sunfounder, you will have the one pin that's labeled G and D. The G and D pin, will go to ground, which is physical pin 38. So you've got 40, 39, 38. It is physical pin 38. And then the next pin, which is labeled 5 volts, that really needs to go to 3.3 volts. And that is physical pin 36. So you've got 40, 39, 38, 37, 36. So that's physical pin 36. And now the next pin is VRX. That needs to go to GPIO pin 27, and then VRY needs to go to GPIO pin 26. And just as a reminder, if you look at this card that comes in the kit, you can see that these are the physical pin numbers, which just starts in the upper left at 1 and goes down to 20, and then it comes around the horn and counts back up to 40. So you go 1 through 20, 21 through 40. Those are the physical pins, but the GPIO pins are listed here. So physical pin 1 is GPIO pin 0, or we could see that physical pin 27 is GPIO pin 21. And so when I say over here that I want GPIO pin 27 and GPIO pin 26, you need to use that little chart and make sure that you are connecting to the GPIO lettering scheme. Okay, hopefully that makes sense by now. Finally, the NeoPixel is really simple. The black wire goes to ground, which is again physical pin 38. The black wire on the NeoPixel goes to physical pin 38, and then the red wire goes to physical pin 40, which is 5 volts, and then the yellow wire goes to the upper right here, which is GPIO pin 0. And now you've got everything hooked up. That's good. We'll come back over here to the code view. So we've got everything hooked up. In addition to everything hooked up, we've got the software that will read from the joystick and return a number telling what angle the joystick is at. And then we've got the routine that will convert HSV angle to RGB. So really we should just be having to glue these things together a little bit to get this thing to work, I think. So we come up here to the top, and that one code that we got, it already sets up pretty much everything that we're going to need associated with the joystick. But what we need to do is we need to set up the NeoPixel still. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set up a PIX for the NeoPixel pin. And what did I say? We were connecting to GPIO 0. Now, oh, that was strange. Okay, so pix pin is connected to 0. And then I've got the pix size. How big is our NeoPixel? Mine is 8. Again, using these techniques, you can control a NeoPixel of pretty much arbitrary size or number of pixels. It's just you don't want to power it from the Pico. If you're doing a bigger one than 8, you need to power it from an external power supply, control it from the Pico. And we've talked a lot about that already. Now we need to set up our NeoPixel object. That's going to be pix is equal to NeoPixel, the library, dot NeoPixel, the method. And then we need to tell it we are at machine.pin. Which pin are we on? Pix pin, like that. And then how big is our NeoPixel array? It is pix size big, like that. Okay, so now that is set up. I wonder if I should just do a pix.fill of, let's just say 0, 255, 255. That should be like aqua. And then pix.write, like that. Let's just see if that works. Hold your breath. Ooh, denied. NeoPixel isn't defined. What is that nonsense? Ah, okay. Up here, I've got to import NeoPixel. Okay, so import NeoPixel. I forgot to do that. You might be blaming me, but one of you guys didn't hold your breath. I think you know who you are. Please, this time, cooperate with the rest of the class. Hold your breath. Ooh, forward given. What is that? I am really having a hard time in line 13. Okay. Oh, pix fill. Isn't that the way I do it? How do we fill everything? Maybe I need to send it a tuple inside, like that. Maybe it needs to be a pixel. Hold your breath. Ah, okay, there. So you see I set it to aqua. That's working. So I've got that hooked up right. I reminded myself that you have to send it not 3 numbers. You have to send it a tuple, and the tuple is inside of the brackets, and so that explains it. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and take that out because, let me see if I can. Yeah, I got it off. Okay. I'm going to take that out because I don't want it to do that when I just normally run it. All right, so now what do I need to do down here in the main program? Well, what the main program is doing is it's reading the horizontal value off the potentiometer, the vertical value off the potentiometer. It's then calibrating it to be a number between -100 and 100 horizontally and -100 and 100 vertically. So I have these calibrated numbers. That's what this does. And then it does a little trigonometry to convert that then to an angle. Okay, it converts that then to an angle. Now, I don't need this anymore. This was to make sure it doesn't crash if the x value is 0. But actually, remember, we talked kind of ad nauseum about how the arctan2 function already does that for you. So we don't need to do that. Then we also saw that the arctan function returns a number between -180 and 180, and we want a number between 0 and 360. And so if the number is less than 0, we go ahead and add 360 to it, and that gives us a smooth transition from 0 all the way around to 360. And so we talked about that in the earlier lessons. Then also what we have said is we have said that we calculate the magnitude of our vector. That is, how far is the joystick from the 0, 0 or neutral position? Okay, so how far is it? Well, if you're all the way over here, that would be a horizontal value of 100. So it would be the square root of 100 squared, which would be 100. Or if you put it up here at 100, 100, then the magnitude. So it's just finding how far you are from the origin. And what we're saying is if you're very, very close to the origin, go ahead and make the horizontal value 0 and go ahead and make the vertical value 0. And the reason that you do that, is because you don't want the thing to be jittery while you're sitting there at the origin. You don't want it switching colors and doing a bunch of different stuff. So this just, if you're really close, just say you're there, and that way you kind of take the noise out of things. Okay, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to come down here, and now what I have is I have this degree, and it is converted to degrees, so that's good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the color, the RGB color that is associated with that number of degrees on the HSV wheel. So I'm going to say color is equal to get RGB, and that is that function that we just brought in of degrees. And so if I say I want red is 0 degrees on the HSV color wheel, I pass this get RGB 0, and then it will return the RGB value, which would be 255, 0, 0. Okay, and so now that is the color. All right, and now I need to get the individual colors, and so I'm going to say red, green, blue is going to be equal to the color. And why? Because this color, what gets returned from the get RGB, we can look over here, what gets returned is a tuple, an R, a G, and a B. And now what I want to do is I want to break that tuple up that's in color now into red and green and blue, if that makes sense. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to do a pix.fill, right? Pix was my NeoPixel object up here. I want to fill it, pix.fill with what? I want to fill it with red, green, blue, like that. And that needs to be a tuple, right, as we found out earlier. Okay, so now that should work, but there's a couple of things we have to remember. This get RGB, that returns a number between 0 and 1. So for red, 0 and 1 for green, and 0 and 1 for blue. And so if red is off, it would return 0 for red. If red is full on, it would return 1. And if red was half on, it would return 0.5. But this NeoPixel call, it wants numbers between 0 and 255. So we need to take these RGB that this little function is generating, and we need to multiply them by 255 so that we get what the NeoPixel call wants. All right. Also, R is a float, G is a float, B is a float, and if I multiply a float by an integer, you'll get a float every time. And what NeoPixel wants is it wants an integer. So while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and convert that to an int, like that. Okay, I'm going to convert that to an int. I'm going to convert that to an int, like that. So now my color that I get and I pass back to this calling thing goes into color, and then color goes into red, green, and blue, and it will be a number between 0 and 255 for each one of those, and it will be integers. And so with that, then I think I can just fill red, green, and blue. And then what I think I can do is a pix.write. Okay, pix.write like that. Okay, we haven't really fully addressed that problem at 0, and we might get flickering at 0, and if we do, then we'll go in and we'll figure out how to handle that. Okay, I will need you to hold your breath. Boom, look at that. Okay, so we've got the lights coming on, but what do we not like? They're kind of flickering randomly because that area around 0 isn't very precise. It's sort of like random. You know, you kind of get random noise there. So what do I want? If I'm really close to 0, I've said HCal is 0, I've said VCal is 0. I also want to go ahead and set the brightness to 0. And we haven't done anything with brightness yet. So normally we would want the brightness to be what? 1, full on. So up here I'll go ahead and say bright equal 1, which is full on. But if I'm in this nonsense region right around 0 where you really don't even have an angle, I just want to turn the thing off and I'll say bright. Okay, so bright is a 0 or bright is a 1. Well, in this case, I want to multiply red by bright. I want to multiply green by bright. And I want to multiply blue by bright. Now, if I'm close to 0, it's just going to turn them off so they don't sit there and jitter around. Okay, but then as I begin to move the joystick and get away from 0, then I should start seeing meaningful colors, if that makes sense. Okay, let's see if that works. Hold your breath. Boom, look at that. Okay, it's off. I like that. Now, as I come away from 0, they should come on. When I come over to 0 degrees, when I come over to 0 degrees to the right, that should turn red, because on the HSV color wheel, 0 degrees is red. And denied. What happened? What happened? Ah, I see. If magnitude is equal to 0 where you start, right? You're starting there. Okay, you are starting there. And then it stays 0 because nothing sets it back. So what do I need to do? What do I need to do? I'll say if bright is greater than 4, then bright equal 1. That was kind of strange. Yeah, once you did that, then there was nothing to reset the brightness back to 1. So now let's try it. Okay, there we go. That's off. That's what we want. Now when we come over to the right, we are still denied. Does anybody see what the problem is? Pixfill is red times bright, green times bright, blue times bright, and then we write it. This is really kind of perplexing. Red bright, green bright, blue bright. Okay, I'm getting the angles right. The angles are right. So then what if I just print? I'm just going to print this whole thing. So I'll see what I'm actually applying to pix.fill. Okay, so then if there's an error or something unexpected, I will see it. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so now when I come over, I'm getting negative values. Why am I getting negative values? Let me take out my other print statement because I'm not sure what I'm looking at there. So now I'm going to run it, and I think I'm getting all zeros here. Yeah. So why am I getting all zeros here? Because I'm saying, all right, this is good troubleshooting because honestly, I don't know what's going wrong. But what I see is red times bright, green times bright, blue times bright is all zeros. Okay. Even though I really think, I see what I did. I said if bright is greater than 4, that should be if mag is greater than 4. Does that make sense? If mag is less than 4, I do this with bright. If mag is greater than 4, I do this with bright. And so I think that should fix it. That 0 is good. There we go. Okay. So if I go to 0 degrees, I'm at red. As I come around, I am mixing some blue in. As I get straight up, I'm going blue. The blue starts going towards aqua, which then starts going towards green, and then the green starts going towards yellow, and the yellow starts going towards orange, and the orange starts going towards red. Boom, we have it. Okay, what do I like? I like, for the most part, I'm getting a little bit of blinking there, so maybe I should say change this to 5, and change this to 5. If I got a little bit more noise there than I thought, that is blinking. I don't want it blinking when it's just sitting there. Let's see if we disturb it a little bit. Okay, that, that 5 looks pretty sweet. And so now I'm going to go red, and then I'm going to go, it goes up to purple, right? That's kind of magenta. And then it starts going towards blue, and I get down here and I start getting towards pure blue. But then we start mixing the green in, and I go to aqua, and then the aqua fades into more of a pure green, and then that green starts adding red to get towards yellow, and then get towards orange, and then finally back to pure red. Okay, that is what we wanted to do. And that wasn't that hard. Okay, that wasn't that hard. But one thing I see, so if you did that, you got the homework assignment. That's what the homework assignment is. I can march around the rainbow with my joystick. But what do I see? I've got other degrees of freedom in here. Like if I go here for 0 degrees, it's red, or all the way over. All of those values there are 0 degrees, and they're all red. What could I do here? I could have not just color based on the angle, but I could have what? What did we define? We defined this idea of brightness. Okay, we defined this idea of brightness. And what do I want brightness to be? I want it to be the in-between things. Well, if I'm very close to the origin, I make it 0. If I'm all the way out, I make it 1. But then let's kind of normalize between there. So what do we have to ask ourselves? We have to ask ourselves is, what is the biggest? What is the biggest number that we could have? What is the furthest that we could be away from the origin? Well, all the numbers go between plus 100 and minus 100, plus 100 and minus 100. It would be the square root of 100 squared plus 100 squared. 100y, 100x. So you would take the square root of 100 squared plus 100 squared. And so what I would say is here, magnitude max is equal to the math dot square root of what? 100 squared plus 100 squared. So that's just always what the biggest number is. All right. Now what mag is the actual size, like actually how far are you away? Okay. Actually, how far are you away? Well, what would brightness be? Bright would be equal to the actual magnitude based on where the joystick is divided by the mag max. And that sounds like Mad Max, doesn't it? That would be the number between 0 and 1. Okay, that would be the number between 0 and 1, and that becomes brightness. Well, if mag is really slow, then we'll make the brightness 0. But if mag is greater than 5, we're not going to make it 1 because we want it to use this number that we just calculated. Is that insane? It might be crazy. Crazy enough that it just might work. So let's try this. Oh, X is not defined. Mag max. I did one of these things, I think. I now I'm committed to finding some opportunity in a program to name a variable Mad Max. Okay, I'm going to name a variable Mad Max one of these days. Okay, so let's run this thing. Okay, so it's starting out good. Let's just go all the way over and can't convert float to int. And where was that in line 67? What is this business? Oh, okay. Before bright was either a 0 or a 1, right? It was a 0 or a 1. 0 is an integer, 1 is an integer, but mag divided by mag max is a floating point number like 0.3745. And then down here, when we multiply, so then because that is a floating point number, when we multiply bright by red, that whole thing becomes a floating point number. And what do we know? We know that the pixfill wants an int. So I've got to change this whole thing to an int. I have to change this whole thing to an int, and I have to change this whole thing to an int. So we thought about it, but what we didn't think is we didn't think when we're multiplying it by a float, now bright becomes a float, all bets are off. I think this is going to work. All right, let's do this thing. Okay, now I'm going to come to the right, and there I've got full red. Okay, red, then going to purple, going to blue, coming on around to aqua, then coming over to green, and then coming towards yellow, and then orange, and then back to red. Okay, now I am seeing a little bit of strangeness there. I'm going to just look at this for a second because I'm seeing a little bit of something that's a little confusing to me. So I'm printing red, green, and blue. I really don't want to print that. I think I just want to print degrees. I'm going to print degree. I'm going to print brightness like that. Because it seems like as I was going around, I was getting a few values that were a little surprising. Okay, so here I am going to be at 0 brightness. That makes sense. I'm at 0 brightness. And let me make sure these are all plugged in good. Okay, so I'm at 0 brightness, and now I'm over to the right, and now I'm at like 0.98, almost full brightness at like 360 degrees or 0 degrees, and I've got red. So that looks good. Now let's see if the angle smoothly moves as I go. You see how I'm changing the angle, and it's well behaved, and that is changing the color in a well behaved way. And then right there it goes from 0 to 360. So that really is expected. Okay, so that I think is working as we would expect. But now what do I want to do? I want to see if I can control the brightness. So instead of going over to full red, okay, instead of going over to full red, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go slowly. And as I go slowly, you see how I'm getting dim. So you see I can have dim red up to full red. And in person, I can see it much clearer than what it's showing up on the camera. Maybe we should just come over here and see if we can see it a little better. Tape. I cannot get good tape, and my NeoPixel is running all over the place. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come, I'm going to see if I can kind of in a careful, controlled way. Yeah, did you see that? I'm going to just get it barely on. See, barely on, and then bring up the brightness to full. And then same thing, let's say that if we try for kind of like a green down here, we can control the brightness. So I can control both the color and the brightness. I can control the color and the brightness. All right, guys, that is pretty cool. So that just shows you the joystick is really a very versatile input device because you've got the different axes that you can control. And also, if you press it down, that's a switch, an on-off switch, like a button switch. And then you would need to connect up this other pin, and you would need to go back and look at my lessons where I show you how to use a toggle switch or a push button switch, and then you could add even more functionality to the joystick. But really, joysticks are very useful. Even things like bulldozers, you know, there's bulldozers you drive with joysticks. There's all types of things that operate based on joysticks because there's a lot of information that you can intuitively give a system through a joystick. Okay, guys, I hope you are enjoying taking these lessons as much as I am making them. We're kind of done with the joystick now, and we are done with the NeoPixel now. So I want you to just play around with this and at least get your system working like I had mine working. And when you get it working, go ahead and post a video. And then next week we will be moving on to a different component and kind of getting into some new stuff. But I've had a lot of fun with the NeoPixel, and I've had a lot of fun with joystick, and I had a lot of fun with the servo. But we'll be looking at incorporating some new components next week. Okay, guys, as always, I want to give a shout out to you guys who are helping me out over at Patreon. You guys that are coming along beside me and supporting me there, you are the ones that keep this great content coming. You're keeping me in the game, man, and I appreciate it. Also, you can help me out by giving me a thumbs up, and you can help me out by leaving a comment down below. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. When you do, ring that bell so you'll get notified when new lessons drop. And as always, share this video with other people, because the world needs more people doing engineering and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.